Big Ten College Football Conference has reversed the decision to postpone the season and said that they are letting players get back on the field, even in schools that aren't letting students back in the classroom. So, what do you make of this decision, Sonny?
Well, I know that President Trump tried to take credit for the decision, and one of the presidents of the Big Ten schools said that he had nothing to do with it, and that, in fact, when his name came up, that it was a negative because the presidents didn't want it to be political. But I actually think it's an economic decision because the economies of these universities are built on the backs of these football players and the free labor that they provide. And so I'm conflicted about that because they're not paid to entertain and build the economies of these schools. You know, I went to Notre Dame, and it's a big football school, and I saw how hard these athletes work, and many of them don't go on to play in the NFL, and many of them get injured. I wonder if the daily testing in the Big Ten is going to be provided to all of the other students. So that's my take.
Right. What about you, Sarah?
This is hard for me as well. I'm from Iowa. Big Ten football was kind of how everyone in where I come from, we revolved around these teams, and I loved it. It makes me nervous that they're making this decision to come back because these are student athletes, students first. And several of these schools aren't even doing in-person classes, which speaks to their impression of the safety of the kids first before their free labor, as Sonny said. But some of these schools have had thousands of cases. Ohio State had 2,286 cases. University of Iowa had 1,831 cases. And with this testing, which Sonny talked about, which would be necessary to keep these players safe, it worries me that they're consuming resources to get these football games on because there are people with symptoms right now that are having still a hard time finding testing, especially in regard to kids. So this is tricky for me, you know, and I know these students will also miss a year of the sport they love, which is hard, but I just don't know if now's the time. There are a lot of things we miss right now, but we're dealing with a pandemic.
Right. What about you, Megan? What's your thoughts?
Look, I'm a big proponent of sports coming back. I was really happy with this decision. I understand there are risks that the Big Ten understands, and they're taking as many precautions as possible. I have just seen the impact football, basketball, you know, baseball, sports coming back has just impacted on people in my life. It is the great American pastime. We are a culture that is consumed and revolves around sports in many different ways. Look at the Black Lives Matter movement and Colin Kaepernick and their influence on social justice. It is all the same thing, politics and sports, and I just think we have got to start coming back to some normalcy, and the idea that we're just going to shut down life forever and shut down life for these football players who, you're right, Sonny, are not being paid, and this is a very small window of time when they can possibly go on to the NFL where they should be making the money that they rightly deserve, and I think we got to start pulling America back. I'm a big proponent of bringing sports back, bringing life back. I just think we know the risks, we know what's going on, and this is the healthiest demographic of people in that age range, and I'm sick of being scared.
Hopefully they won't boo them when they play or kneel.
Sorry?
It's a interesting
Hopefully they won't boo them
conversation.
if they kneel.
I'm sorry.
This is true. We'll be